What is up, guys? Today we're going to look at 7 areas an AD player needs to have to be effective and carry in Season 7. We're going to look at what a bad, an average, and a good player looks like for each, so you can score yourself and see exactly where you fit, which would be super cool to see in the comments. These educational videos, by the way, like this one, took me 4 times as long as a normal video, so if you end up enjoying it, I would really appreciate it if you could let me know in the comments, leave a like on the video and subscribe as well. So part of the reason I'm updating this for Season 7 is because of the first thing in here. The bot lane has become a party and it's much different to play than it used to be. So that is the first one, how we deal with our bot lane camp experience. A bad AD carry is going to die, basically. They die to roams from mid lane, TP from top, and jungle ganks. They're going to play their own game, do whatever they like, and only think about what they are doing. They might be stronger overall, they might have more CS, I think they're doing really well, but actually they're getting pounded by ganks. An average AD is going to ward before pushing. They're going to think about the jungler more and survive ganks probably 50% of the time, but they'll blow summoners whenever it happens. They'll still play to their preferred playstyles, so like pushing, fighting, farming, whatever it's going to be, which is why it's 50-50. The other reason is because they react well to what happens, but they're taken by surprise. It's kind of that unlucky meme. Oh, that was unlucky timing. Oh, he ganked right then. That was really unlucky. Like, unlucky the jungle ganked while I push when I had no flash. Stuff like that. A good AD, though, will play around the knowledge they have, and they're going to think ahead, rather than trying to react in the actual moment. The biggest differences are they will ward their tri-bush when they're being pushed in to prevent dives, for example. They'll buy control wards to allow their team to gank. They're going to ward in better places, further into the enemy jungle, for example, or further into the river, which gives them more time to react and see the person. They might know when the enemy TP is ready, but more likely they'll just have it in the back of their minds that it could come in, or if wards are behind them, that they might TP to those wards. So the next thing is mechanics. We're going to split this into 3 things. So like combos, reactions, and also attack moving or just fighting. For a bad AD carry in their combos, they're going to use spells and autos in whatever order they want with no real plan or thought at all. They're going to get flustered and they panic in the moment of a fight, so they're only really looking at that champion, which can make their reactions be pretty pants. As far as attack moving goes, they either run or they fight. They don't move between auto attacks either, so there isn't really any kiting going on at all. An average AD will have the basic combos down. They can easily say they understand the champion they're playing and how to use their damage, so like Lucian's passive, for example. They can also use more advanced combos if there's no pressure on them at all, so a Caitlyn net into Q on Caitlyn net into trap, for example. They can also react to normal things like flashing a Malphite ultimate if you're watching him, but not if he comes from Fog of War, stuff like that. So it's if they expect it, they're kind of predicting what is going to happen so they can react to it. As far as attack moving goes, they can attack move or kite, but they don't really read situations very well. Sometimes they kind of run away anyway, even when they shouldn't, or they stay to attack and they die for it. A good AD carry is going to use more advanced combos consistently even when under pressure. They're also going to weave auto attacks into everything. A good AD carry player will auto before abilities and stuff like that. It adds hundreds of damage if they get all these extra auto attacks in a fight. We're also moving away from just predictive reactions to reactive as well, so they can still react to something they don't expect to happen, and they also start to think a few seconds ahead. You will do this without realizing, but if you think about it, you're imagining how the fight plays out and what you will need to do before it happens. So like flash if this happens. They're constantly attacking when it's safe to do so. They know when to run properly though, as well as actually stay to fight. In my opinion, this is what mechanics really comes down to, and funnily enough, it's still a lot to do with knowledge actually. Being able to do the right thing can be kind of hard sometimes, sure, mechanically, but it's also hard to know what to do in the heat of the moment. That is real mechanics, to be honest. The third thing is the lane phase. So a bad AD carry is going to miss a ton of free CS, and free CS, by the way, is when you're not being pressured at all, you just kind of miss it because you're bad. Trading wise, they fight when it's obvious or when the enemy AD or support or your support starts to fight, but they have no plan though. They're happy to sit back and just, they have next to no pressure as well. It's very easy to play against a bad AD player. You end up just going to free farming the entire lane. Base timings are just going back whenever they have money to buy something big. There's no real plan at all. They're also going to use their potion as soon as they take a bad trade. So if someone pops this at like 75% health and they actually chug their potion, that is when you know they're a bad AD. For an average AD carry, the farm is going to start to be good. Now you're hitting decent numbers, probably like 60 to 80 in 10 minutes, and not missing a ton unless you're pressured to do it. They're also going to start to abuse cooldowns and look for fights more with trading. So this means when the enemy Lucian uses Q on the wave, for example, they move into punish because he can't use that Q on them while it's on cooldown. They're going to be a bit harder to play against, but they're often actually going to still default to farming or pushing, one of the two. Base timings will probably mess it up a little bit, but they only miss one wave maximum really, and at least they're going to push before basing. They're also better with potions. They're going to try and get the enemy to use theirs first, so they have that advantage. A good AD farm wise is a massive difference in my opinion. You should be getting close to 80 plus in every game in 10 minutes. That's not much different from the average one, right? But it's harder now as well because you're going to get that while also also being harassed and pressured in the lane phase. That is really what makes a good AD CS wise. Like, you're going to have that consistently every single game, even in hard lanes. Trading wise, you're going to use minions and cooldowns together now. So you're going to trade when they have used their main cooldowns like a Thresh Hook or a Caitlyn Q, but also just use autos to harass. So when they go for a CS, they are looking at that CS, right? Not really at you. You can get in a free hit and just walk back afterwards. 9 times out of 10, they choose that CS over attacking you back, so it's a really good trade. Bad and average ADs won't really do this because it's a very slow grind. Like, you kind of need 10 autos at least to make this really stack up and actually get an advantage from it. Pressure wise, it's much harder to play against. They're going to punish you for CSing, they're going to zone you, they're going to look to fight you constantly. They also know when to push, when to leave, and to bait. So like, they plan ahead to what the wave is going to look like after they come back to the lane. There is also way more thought behind using your potion. If they're not going to fight, they're just going to use lifesteal. If they want to fight, they're going to use that potion. Roaming is another thing, kind of new to season 7 really. You should be roaming way more as an AD carry now than in previous seasons. You can't really farm up on 1v9 anymore. A bad AD is going to sit bot lane and farm the entire game and complain when his team gets dicked on. We've all kind of been there before. An average AD will revolve around the same things every single game. So normally towers. They're going to get bot tower and then go mid lane afterwards to get that tower, right? Get bot tower or get a dragon. They at least do start to run around and stuff, but they don't really get very much, or they lose CS bot lane a lot. A good AD though is really unpredictable. So they get people by surprise because they're not expecting you to roam at that point. Like, it's not obvious. They're also going to pick good times to roam. They push at different speeds depending on what they want to do. So for example, you can slow push a lane, right? That means you have a slow build up of more minions than the enemy wave, building into a bigger wave and slower. That gives you more time to roam mid and pressure the tower because someone is going to have to go bot lane to clear it eventually, or it will damage or take the tower and you'll lose a lot of gold. On the other side, like, an average AD would just shove hard and then roam mid, and that's bad because one, the enemy AD can push it back quicker and roam mid to match you, and number two, you'll end up missing that CS under your tower and you're unlikely to get mid pressure anyway. Moving on to wave control, this is one of the ancient things of AD carry, I guess. A bad AD carry is going to autopilot, so it's normally dictated by the enemy AD and what they do. You just don't really care, or you don't really think about it. It's sad, but this is probably where most AD carries now are in season 7. They just go with the flow of the lane and do whatever. An average AD has some idea of what they should be doing, but they'll still just default to pushing most of the time. At least like they have some more control now though. They'll still be an autopilot to be honest, but have more game knowledge, so subconsciously they'll be controlling the wave better. You'll also find these are the lazy ones. Like, I probably should freeze this, but pushing is easier, so I'm going to do that instead. A good AD will make an effort to do something and think why. So like, why am I pushing? Why am I freezing? What should I actually be doing with this wave? Most common examples I can give you of a good AD with wave control would be slow pushing, which we already talked about. If an AD deliberately slow pushes, they have to thought about it in the first place. Freezing as well when they are normally stronger, like keep it close to their tower so the enemy AD has to come up to the lane to CS. It's also much easier to get kills and fight or use that lead you have. Even just pushing, like they know when they actually should do it and shouldn't do it. So when you know the jungler is topside so you can't get ganked, you push it, or if you want tower damage or your jungler is around. Having a reason as to why you're doing it at least, and this is kind of like a lost art, as I said. Like, you had to do this in season 1, 2, and 3 honestly, but slowly it's become way easier to get away with not doing it, even though it can make a massive difference. With team fighting, we've got 3 different things, so prediction, positioning, and target focus. A bad AD will have no idea what is going to happen in a fight. They kind of go with the flow, and that means they could do anything. Mainly because of that, actually, their positioning tends to be crap. You have no idea where to stand. And your target focus is normally looking at the damage champions on the enemy team because you can actually kill them, right? You can actually chunk their health bars. This is how you can instantly tell if someone is a bad AD player, right? They think it's their job to kill the enemy AD or enemy mid laner, and it's definitely not your job. Most of the time, your job is to attack the closest target, and we'll get into that in a second though. For an average AD, they have thought about what they need to do, or at least to avoid a little bit more in a fight. They know roughly how the fight is going to pan out at the start at least. Like, they need to avoid the enemy Syndra stun or the Amumu Q so they can't engage. Positioning, they're normally at the back behind teammates, baiting them to eat cooldowns for you, which is not always a bad thing, and avoiding what they know will kill them. Target focus is normally the closest target as well, but they have more tunnel vision though, so that you attack one target but they don't swap very quickly between them. For a good AD carry, they have a much better idea of what is likely going to happen. They know what they have to avoid and what they probably want to do in a fight, but they can adapt on the fly as well. Positioning wise is actually often more at the front, and it's weird, I know. It's not always the case, but you're trying to poke before the fight starts as well as stay safe. Ezreal is the best example. He wants to fire his Q over and over before to poke someone down, rather than average AD who will stay at the back waiting for the fight to start. Target focus, you will live by the attack the closest, highest priority target that is safe to do so. What that actually means is, above all, you're going to stay safe and alive, but attack whoever is the most dangerous that you can actually reach. It's like if an enemy Leona and Graves are diving onto you, right? You focus the Graves first. If the Graves runs back to the rest of his team though, you don't follow him into them, you swap to the Leona. You'll be swapping targets a lot more here to maximize damage, and even though you can't track this very well, you will not be watching your champion or target very much. Bad to average AD carries will tunnel on what their champion is doing and their target. Now, good players will be watching the rest of the fight to see what is actually happening. And finally, with items then. So a bad AD carry builds the same every single game because they saw it on top of a Mobify guide and it had the most thumbs up or whatever, so it must be good. Please don't do that, by the way. An average AD though will change that build according to what's happening in the game and what they need right now. They have a bit more of an understanding of what their items actually do, but what they'll do is they'll like finish their third item, but Malphite has 3 armor items now, so they build for a Last Whisper next. That sounds like a logical thing to do, right? But a good AD carry will adapt their build for what they are going to need by the time they finished it or what they need in 10 minutes. Using the same example, right? They would see a Malphite stacking armor at 2 items, and so the third item would be a Last Whisper because they're going to need that by the time they finish it. It's really that simple, right? What items will I need to have in 10 to 15 minutes rather than what do I need right now for the game? Another example which is really common is if you see the enemy LeBlanc is fed but only has 2 damage items right now and can't one-shot you, that's great. But by the time you finish your next item, she'll have 3 damage items and she can one-shot you. An average AD will have bought more damage and get one-shot, but a good AD will have realized that and built defense third and not get one-shot. That is my point. So those are the 7 things, and what did you guys actually score? Like, how many bad, average, and good points did you manage to pick up as an AD player along the way? I put a lot of effort into this video, so I hope you enjoyed it. Thank you for watching, but for now, I'll leave you with the robots.